Hey there, music lovers. Welcome to the channel, and I want to thank each of you for dropping by, taking time out of your day to watch these videos. I appreciate the comments and the subscriptions and all of it. Great, great. Thank you very, very much. In this video, I want to give my review of a concert that I just saw this past weekend in Virginia Beach on September the 8th, and it was Judas Priest and Deep Purple. We're talking about the metal gods, and or at least Judas Priest, you can say, is the metal gods. Deep Purple have been considered metal in some circles, but I never considered Purple to be metal. I always thought they were just a real hard rock band. They're great. They're one of the best classic rock bands, one of the staples. Just got put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for whatever that's worth. I say that because, it seems like a badge of honor to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I don't know. Nowadays, they take so damn long for you to get inducted. Like half the band is dead, or you got to wait till Tupac goes in first. So it's like, gee, thanks. I'm glad you finally thought of me. But I did a whole video about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'll put a link up to it. Who I think should be going in there next. We'll see how many of my picks wind up in the next list of nominees, which we should be getting, I'd say, within the next month or so. So I'm kind of curious to see who they throw in there. Anyway, yeah, Deep Purple and Judas Priest on the same bill. You don't usually see this pairing, these two type of bands, these two titans. But I think one of the reasons is because Judas Priest has really hit some hard times lately. This has not been their year. They started off the year with news that one of their longtime drummers, Dave Holland, passed away. Dave was a drummer during their heyday on such albums like, British Steel and some others that he was just, a phenomenal part of those albums and a part of the band during that time. So we lost him in January. We also got news in February that guitarist and founding member Glen Tipton was not going to be able to tour in support of their latest album, Firepower, because he's been battling with Parkinson's disease for many, many years, and it's just gotten to a point now where he just can't go out and play live with any real kind of a consistency. He has popped up in a few shows in Europe where he was able to, but for the most part, Tipton is a no-show, and he's been replaced by a guy named Andy Sneap, who was actually one of the producers on the new Firepower album. So he knows all the material. He knows Tipton's parts, and he did a really good job, actually. But it's a shame that we don't have Tipton. Because, Priest is a dual guitar attack. That's what they're kind of built around, are those dual guitars of, K.K. Downing and Glen Tipton. Now, Downing, he retired a number of years ago, so he's been kind of out of the scene. But you had Tipton. Now, of course, now we don't. At least in a live scenario, we don't. And so this is the first time that Priest is going out there without, one founding member on the guitars. So there's been a lot of speculation as to what it's going to sound like. Should they even go out? Is Priest done? Should they hang it up? They do have a great band here. You've got Scott Travis on drums. He's been with them since, I think, 89 or so. He's a tremendous talent. He's really, really fun to watch. Really, really great drummer. And, of course, you've got Ian Hill on bass. He's a founding member. So you've got two originals with him and Rob Halford. They just came off of a very strong album, Firepower. It's probably their best album since Painkiller, maybe, or something. I don't know. It's a really strong album, and they did about 3 or 4 songs from that album in this set. And so I was also wondering about Rob Halford and what he was going to sound like, because Rob Halford is known for having like these really just enormously sky-high vocals, and I must say, Rob Halford came to perform, and that he did. Judas Priest, even though they were down Tipton, they delivered on all levels. Those guys put on an amazing show. Richie Faulkner, who of course replaced K.K. Downing on guitar, he was fun to watch too. He's a tremendous guitar player. The solos that he was doing, and he's a tremendous talent. Judas Priest does have a lot going for it. And so I'm kind of interested to see what you guys think about Priest and if they should keep on going. If they could put out Firepower, they could probably do another album. Tipton is certainly probably capable of still writing and doing some stuff in the studio. Just not going to see him live. So I would like to know what you guys think about Priest going forward, if you think they should stop here or if they should keep on going. All right, so let's go over the set list for Judas Priest. They start the show with Firepower, which is the title track from their new album. And as I just mentioned, it's a very strong album, and they came out firing on all cylinders. Those guys were just so charged up, and they just rocked. They looked good, they sounded good. They delivered the goods, which is the second song that they did. Great one from the Killing Machine album from '78. And that album was actually renamed Hellbent for Leather here in the States because the record label just thought it was too violent, Killing Machine. So they had to change the name on it. But was really happy to see that song. They used to do Grinder, which is another one of my favorite Priest songs from the British Steel album, but they dropped it recently and they threw in Delivering the Goods. So it's hard to say. You might get this song. Maybe they'll throw Grinder back in at some point. But they delivered the goods on that one. Then they did Sinner. I love that song. That's from the '77 album, Sin After Sin. This song reminds me of Deep Purple. If you listen to the guitar, the tone sounds like Blackmore, and it actually has a Deep Purple kind of vibe to it. It's like Deep Purple on roids. And I just love the way the song jams. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put a playlist below, 5 songs from each of these bands. Maybe you haven't heard of these bands. Maybe you're curious about them. I picked out 5 songs that they did in this show that I enjoyed that maybe you'll like them too. So be sure to look for that link. Then they do another new one, Lightning Strike. And then they get into Desert Plains. Great song from Point of Entry from the '81 album there. Then they do Turbo Lover. Remember that song from the mid-'80s? Very controversial time for Judas Priest, when they came out with the Turbo album. Video was really big on MTV, and Priest was never going to go the hair metal route. They weren't going to look like chicks because, let's face it, Rob Halford, he didn't even have any hair, so he couldn't do much with the hair metal scene. All right, so then they pull out another new one from the Firepower album, Rising from Ruins. That was cool. Then they do Free Wheel Burning. You've Got Another Thing Coming. Then after that, Rob Halford pulls out the old Motorcycle and the Shades, and they do Hellbent for Leather, and then they wrap up the set with Painkiller. Then they do an encore of 3 songs from the British Steel album, Metal Gods, Living After Midnight, and Breaking the Law. And, Judas Priest came to play. They did a tremendous job. They were fun to watch. Richie Faulkner, as I said, was amazing. Scott Travis on drums was really, really good. Andy Sneap, who was filling in for Glen Tipton, he actually was very good too. Rob Halford, I didn't know what to expect from him vocally. He looks old, and he's getting up there, but he could still nail those highs just like the old classic days. It was really shocking, and it was really a pleasure to watch Priest. I thought that they really did a fine job. Where they go from here is uncertain. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. There was some speculation that maybe KK Downing would come in to take Tipton's place, maybe, being that they don't have any original guitar players in this band now. And KK Downing actually said that he was a bit stunned that he wasn't asked to join the band again. So interesting to see what happens with Priest going forward. Let me know what you think about those guys. Be sure to comment on that below. All right, so getting into the Deep Purple side of the show, I went in not knowing what to expect. I had never seen Purple before, and I wondered if maybe I waited too late, because they're all so much older now. Was Ian Gillan's voice going to be all right? And how about Ian Pace, the drummer? He had a stroke in 2016 to the point where, it debilitated him. He wasn't able to play some shows. That was the first time that had ever happened. Of course, they lost their longtime keyboard player, John Lord, a few years back. And he was a major force in that band. It would be like Yes losing Wakeman. You know what I mean? Just such a big presence. So, I was wondering about that. One thing I wasn't really concerned about was not having Richie Blackmore there, which I know a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? You got to have Richie Blackmore. And I like Richie Blackmore. I think he's a great guitar player. But Steve Morse, who has been in the band for the past 20 plus years, he's an amazing guitar player. He really is a top-notch, world-class player. And the fact that he didn't get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Deep Purple, that to me was such a travesty. And I know that Steve Morse was not a part of, like the formative years when they were doing their classic stuff like Machine Head and everything, but still, he's been a part of the band for 20 plus years. He's a part of the Deep Purple family, helping to fly the flag, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame doesn't think enough of him to induct him along with the other guys. To me, it was a slap in the face. And that's one of the other problems that I've got with the Hall of Fame is that they don't induct the right people all the time. They tend to leave people out, and they've got some kind of a criteria that they use that's not very consistent. And so the Hall of Fame really is, they're the Hall of Shame. One of the worst things that I saw recently was the guy from the Moody Blues, Ray Thomas, I think it was. The Moody Blues finally get inducted, after Tupac and after Madonna. And finally, the Moody Blues get inducted. And between the nomination and the induction ceremony a few months later, Ray Thomas of the Moody Blues passes away. So the poor guy couldn't even get to play in the Hall of Fame show, So that just, the Hall of Fame, they can just suck it. They really can. Anyway, let's get to the show here. Deep Purple come out with a couple of great ones from Machine Head, kicking off the show with Highway Star. They came out blazing. Ian Pace just whipping it up on drums. Roger Glover, the whole Roger Glover, he's on bass. Him and Pace are just a great rhythm section. They don't get enough credit. They just really, really brought it. They do Pictures of Home after that, which is a song that they don't do a whole lot, but it's good to hear that one. Then they go into a song called Bloodsucker, which is a great song from the In Rock album. Unfortunately, though, that song just wasn't recorded very well, so the original version is not the one that I like. I actually like the version that they did on their 98 album, Abandon. And yeah, it doesn't have Ritchie Blackmore, but Steve Morse steps up and does a tremendous job on it. So I'm going to put a link to that below. Like I said earlier with the Judas Priest set, I've got a playlist going below, 5 songs from each of these bands that you should check out if you're not too familiar with them. But yeah, Bloodsucker was awesome. Then they do Strange Kind of Woman. That was a great one. And then they do this one called Sometimes I Feel Like Screaming, which is a song from the Perpendicular album, which was the first album that had Steve Morse on it. And that song is often considered to be, one of the best songs that Purple did during the Steve Morse years. Then they do a song called Uncommon Man, which is from their 2013 album, Now What? And this album was produced by Bob Ezrin. It's got some cool stuff on it. This song is really good. If you like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, you might want to check this song out. It sounds like, if Deep Purple and Emerson, Lake and Palmer had a baby. That's what Uncommon Man is. It's kind of a proggy, lots of keyboards on it, and it's a really cool song. I enjoyed it. Lazy is after that from the Machine Head album. Then they do one of my favorite Purple songs, Knocking at Your Back Door. This is from the Perfect Strangers album. I remember this was the first Deep Purple album that I really ever got into. Deep Purple went away in the mid-70s. After Ian Gillan left, he was replaced with David Coverdale, who went on to form Whitesnake and everything. Whitesnake formed out of the ashes of Deep Purple kind of breaking up. So they went through a David Coverdale phase, which I actually liked. But then after, I think Come Taste the Band was the last album that they made with Coverdale, like in the mid-70s, and they went away for about 10 or so years. Purple came back in the mid-80s, and they did this album called Perfect Strangers, which was really, really good, and Knocking at Your Back Door is a great song, and yes, it is about what you think it's about. That's all I'm going to say. And then they do a keyboard solo. Don Airey is a great keyboard player. He did a tremendous job. Really enjoyed his keys on this show. And then Ian Pace does a little bit of a drum solo. That was also really, really cool. And then they go into the title track from the Perfect Strangers album, which is love that song too. Kind of a odd Deep Purple song in that it doesn't have a guitar solo in it. And I've also read that it's like one of Ritchie Blackmore's favorite Purple songs. Kind of odd that it would be, being that there's no solo, but always did love that song. Then they do Space Truckin' from the Machine Head album, and then of course Smoke on the Water, the classic track that everybody is probably tired of hearing. If you go into any like a Guitar Center or a Sam Ash, any of these places where you can buy a guitar, they usually have a sign up that says no smoke on the water, no Stairway to Heaven. Just please, for the sake of our sanity, don't play this song. So yeah, I mean, Smoke on the Water, even though it's been played to death, and when I was in radio, I was really sick of hearing it and getting calls for it. I remember I would just either turn the volume down on it so I didn't have to hear it, or I would just, get up and go take a break or something. But it's got a great riff. It's a great song, really, when you get down to it. And, it's a true story about how when Deep Purple went to record this album, Machine Head, they went to Montreux, and the place burned down before they could really do much of anything there. Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention were playing a show there at the casino there, and somebody in the audience, I think, shot off a flare gun or something and burned the whole place. And so that's what that song's about. So that's how they end the show. Then they come out and they do Hush, which was a very early hit for them. And if you want to hear a really good version of Hush, check out their live album from the 80s. I can't remember the name of the album, but they do a really good studio version of Hush. I'll put a link to it down below. Anyway, that's the show. They do most of the Machine Head album, 5 of the 7 tracks. Ian Pace, tremendous on drums. It's great to see him playing so well after his stroke from a couple years ago. Roger Glover, great on bass. Love the rhythm section. Don Airey on keyboards. Did a really good job. Ian Gillan on vocals. He, not the same singer that he used to be, but respectable. He can still hit a lot of notes, and I found that he did a very good job. And also you had Steve Morse on the guitar. As much as I love Ritchie, I really was looking forward to seeing Steve Morse. I had never seen him play live before, and he delivered. He's a tremendous talent, and I would love to go see Purple again, actually, based on this show. And too, one thing that I've also mentioned before is that if you should go see these bands while they're still around, because you never know. We're getting to the point with some of these bands, you lose 1 or 2 more key people, there's just no way that they're going to keep on going, and they're going to be gone forever. You're never going to be able to see them again. So if they mean that much to you, go see them. And Deep Purple, I know, has got some more shows here in the States, and that they're going across the world. And who knows, maybe they'll come back again. That would be great. Like I said, I would go see them again for sure. They put on a really good, solid show. Both of these bands performing very, very well, exceeded my expectations. So I want to know what you think. Have you seen this tour? Would you go see these guys? And let me know what you think about them. What are your favorite songs from Deep Purple and from Judas Priest? Put them down below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button too, and I will be back soon with another video.
Fantastic. You've been amazing. Absolutely superb. Thank you so much. Thank you. From the Temperance Movement, and from Judas Priest, and from us, Deep Purple, we love you. Take it easy.